Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and I finished yet another Star Trek TNG novel today. Star Trek The Next Generation Spartacus by T.L. Mancour. I hope I'm saying that correct. T.L. Mancour. So here's the cover. Let's have a close look at that. So you would expect you're jumping into some sort of Riker and Data adventure with some gladiators. You would expect that, but you would be wrong, because that is not at all what this book is about. But let's jump to the back cover here and read this. Now, before I started this book, I did not read the back cover, because I think that's just the best way to read a book anymore. So going forward, no more back covers. I'll read them when I'm done, and then see what they spoiled. So that's the fun way to do it. Answering a distress call, the USS Enterprise finds a damaged alien vessel, the Freedom, crewed by a race known as the Vemlins. Their captain, Jared, asks for assistance in repairing his ship. Assistance Picard and the USS Enterprise are only too happy to provide. But once begun, their relief efforts are interrupted by the arrival of an entire fleet from Vemla, who claim that Jared and his crew are escaped slaves and their property? What? As Jared and his people plead for protection and the right to be free, Captain Picard is caught between the demands of his conscience and the dictates of the Prime Directive. And when the Vemlin fleet threatens to fight, the USS Enterprise doesn't stand aside. Picard must choose between the safety of his ship and the annihilation of an entire race. Again, man, don't read these back covers before you read the book. I recommend for a better reading experience, because in the reading of this book I had no idea about any of that, and when the Vemlins showed up in the book, I didn't know who they were, and that was great. And if I had read this, I would have been clued in the whole time, and it would have ruined some of the mystery. So anyway, let's jump right into the notes here. First off, I want to say this book is very, very good. And as you can see, I changed the title. And I had to think of a good title. I said, I can't keep saying let's talk about every single time. But what can I say about this book? What I can say about this book, it's very good. This book is very good. This book is 276 pages. I started it on the 6th of August and finished it today on the 10th. Published in 1992, of course, by Pocket Books, written by T.L. Mancour. And the book starts with the Enterprise caught in a freak storm called a Gabriel effect. And this storm basically causes havoc with every computer system, so for the duration of this storm, they've had to shut everything down. No holodecks, no replicators, nothing like that. So the crew has been going a little bit stir-crazy at this point. But they are apparently on the edge of it. So at the end of chapter 1, they come out of this, and they notice, kind of off in the distance with their scanning range, another ship, also which was affected by this storm. And they've come out of it as well. So they raise the ship to see if they can offer any assistance, and they're greeted with Captain Jared of the Freedom. And this is our first glimpse here of the Vemlins. In the second chapter, they introduce another character. Turns out to be a great character. This is Force Commander Sawliru. Sawliru. S-A-W-L-I-R-U. Sawliru. And his boss, Mission Commander Alkurg. And they are on a search for some kind of objective, which they lead vague at the moment, just to kind of let you know that they're off in the distance, and they are definitely on the search for something. And they are a military fleet. So that's what you have going on so far in the beginning here. They go back to the ship, and we're able to meet the inhabitants of the Freedom for the first time. So we're introduced to Jared and his wife Kurta, who's also like his first officer. They have an engineer named Dren, and sort of a librarian, kind of a keeper of all the files, named Moran. And they're very vague about where they came from, basically just kind of claiming that they're refugees from the planet Vemlin. They're escaping a planet that was devastated by war, and there's nothing left, and they claim to be kind of like the last of their kind. They have serious damage to their ship, they have damage to their engines, and they can tell by looking at it that it's been through some trouble. So they do offer their assistance, which at first they're kind of suspicious about, but the they do need help and they're in a lot of trouble, so they do accept the assistance. And Geordi's able to come over with a team of engineers and help get their engines fixed up and get things fixed up. They keep dropping little clues every now and then that kind of something is off, and people keep mentioning it as well. Riker has his suspicions about everybody. It's finally revealed at the end of Chapter 4 when Wes and Geordi are over there kind of helping fix some engines. There's an accident there. One of the guys' legs is actually ripped off, and it turns out he is an android. Whoa, I know, right? But not is that guy just an android. Once Geordi sees that, he's able to kind of attune his visor, and he can tell that every single member of that crew is androids. It is a whole crew, a whole race of androids, as it were. Another thing about this book, it's so great, big beefy chapters, which is something I like. So it takes and just, you got these nice big beefy chapters that just stick with the story, and the author just does a great job of really driving it forward. Even though you've got these long chapters, it just keeps driving forward and forward and forward. So Picard and Jared end up actually talking. They meet and they kind of get together on the holodeck on the Enterprise, have a nice little dinner. He's trying to kind of figure out a little bit more about them. And at this time, Force Commander Saurlu arrives. And this is where kind of Picard is thrown for a loop here. All this time he thought they were refugees, but it turns out that no, they are on the run from the actual Vemlan Navy, who the Saurlu represents here. Saurlu claims that they are not people. So these are androids, they are just mechanical beings, and they are malfunctioned property. And he's here to get them and take them back and get them taken care of. But of course, the crew of the Enterprise and everybody is going to see that differently, having served with Data all this time. They see these beings as, functional, sentient beings. So they're not seeing their side of the story very well. So Picard basically invites everybody aboard the Enterprise to kind of tell your side of the story. They're trying to figure out more about what is really happening here. And this is when the story really starts to shine. One thing I like about Star Trek books, one of my favorite things, is just these wonderful long conference scenes where you have just these people throwing these ideas back and forth. Nothing action, nothing flying through space and blasting phasers, but just sitting around a table kind of like talking it out. And this book excels at those kind of scenes. There are so many that are just so good. And it all kind of starts here with this first initial conference for trying to figure out who's telling the truth, what side should Starfleet be on. So each side tells their story of what happened to the Vemlan people, which is a very, very, very interesting story. Gonna need some water. So, the Vemlans. The Vemlans were a race that were introduced to some technology from another race before they were ready. So there was a race called the Sarens who came along and sold kind of an inferior race technology that they were not quite ready to handle yet. And because of that, the Vemlans advanced at a rate where their technology increased faster than they were ready to handle, mentally and as a species. And what they were able to do over a period of time is develop these more and more and more incredible and lifelike and amazing androids. And eventually it came to a point in their society, and this was after their society had went through war, millions of years, not millions, but thousands of years of wars, terrible wars that devastated them. But they were able to, through the use of building these androids, kind of come to a peace in their world. Because these androids kind of got rid of everything. They took care of everything. They did all of the labor. They did all of anything that anyone didn't want to do. But what happened to these people, these Vemlans, is then they basically became kind of stagnant. and they weren't growing as a people, and with the androids doing everything, and I mean even like androids doing all the art, the music, and all that kind of stuff, they as a people were becoming like stagnant. Uh, and also they were becoming very bad because they didn't see what they were doing by creating this race of androids. They basically created a race of slaves, and it had gotten to the point too where they were even using them in like awful games like the ancient Romans, which is part of the reason where the title comes from, of course. Uh, and that's where Jared's story starts. So you kind of have these two opposing viewpoints where Solaru tells his part of the story where the Vemlins rose up, but then the androids malfunctioned. And when they malfunctioned, they revolted, and then they rose up and did terrible, awful things. And yeah, they actually did terrible, awful things. Nuclear attacks, biological attacks, millions and millions of Vemlins dead at the hands of these android terrorists that rose up. And then, as their last act, as they destroyed millions of Vemlins, they stole this ship, which used to be called the Conquest, and took off. And that's the ship they renamed the Freedom. So that's kind of that guy's point of view. Now then, Jared gets up and he tells his point of view, which is, again, just all these scenes are really good. All these scenes are really good. But his point of view is, he is what they call an alpha android. And he was raised by a somewhat kinder, or he was given to a somewhat kinder master, who allowed him to kind of learn, and that's what he did. He learned and he read and he took on as much as he could, and as someone who learns and learns more, they begin to yearn for freedom, and that's what he did. And he began to see the situation for what it was, that his people, his race of androids, were slaves to these Vemlins. So Jared is the one that begins the revolt, and he starts everything up, and it all kind of goes forward from there. And then told from his story, his point of view, basically his race was going to be wiped out. The Vemlins had decided at that point, the androids were malfunctioning, we have to destroy all of them, and they had begun systematically wiping out and destroying every single android on their planet. So from Jared's point of view, he's fighting for the survival of his species. So that's why he goes to the extreme measures of the nuclear bombs and bio attacks, but eventually sees that the only real option is going to be escape. So that's when he steals the Conquest with his crew, kind of the very last vestiges of androids, and escapes. And that's when they were sent. So there you have both sides of the story being told here. And Captain Picard, after hearing both sides of the story, makes the decision that there's nothing that he can do. There's no way that he can interfere. This is a matter of the Prime Directive. He cannot take a side in this matter. So basically, he gives everybody 24 hours. We're going to finish the repairs that we promised that we're going to do, and then we're out. That's it. There's nothing we can do. Now, Data, of course, he doesn't like that. He's driven by a need to find some kind of solution to this problem. And at first you're thinking, or they make it seem, or the author makes it seem, that the solution is that because has like a feeling for these androids. And of course he does in his way. But the real reason is revealed that it's the true mission of Starfleet to like seek out new life and new civilizations, and that's what these Vemlin androids are. So Picard kind of is heartened by that that's his real reasoning to do that. And then what Data does, without telling the captain, is give the Vemlin androids a way to join the Federation. He tells them that they have a possible way that they can petition for a provisional membership, and that might be a way for them to get some protection under the Federation. So, man, of course, Data finds a way. Data always finds a way. So Picard must hold a hearing. Data's got them into a little bit of a pickle, but, for good reason, so it's fine. So before the hearing, kind of everybody is on edge. So Jared is planning bad things. So he kind of sees things going bad for his people and wants to do everything he can for his people. So he's planning that if the hearing does not go well, he's going to release a biological agent. He's got a bomb implanted in him, and he's even got like a gun in his pocket or something. I don't know how he got that, but he's got a lot of bad ideas and bad intentions, which most of the other androids aren't actually sharing as well. But he wants to do whatever he can for his people, and that's his job. On the other side, you have the Vemlin Navy, and they're prepared to, if this does not go their way, launch a surprise attack on the Enterprise, which would be garbage. They would be destroyed. But that's their plan anyway, which is a bad plan, but it's what their kind of fanatical leader has decided to do. And this is not Solaru in his plan. This is this Alkirk, the person above him, who's more of like the politician, not the military person, and who's just obsessed with catching these androids and bringing them back. So even though it seems like a terrible plan and is a terrible plan, they're going to go through with it anyway. So now we're getting to the very best part of the story here, which is the kind of like the hearing and the fallout from that. So the hearing commences. So basically what you have is Picard kind of commencing the hearing, and then he chooses two people from his crew to kind of act as his seconds, and he chooses Riker and Dr. Crusher. And Riker and Dr. Crusher are there to kind of raise objections. So, objection, they can't join the Federation, they're androids. And then Picard and Data will come back and kind of talk that down so that all of the points are covered. And that's kind of the idea. So at this point, you get two really great speeches. You get an impassioned speech by Solaru and a great speech by Jared. Both of them really well written. And both of them kind of make you feel their side, you know. So then the Riker, Dr. Crusher, and Picard adjourn. And you have another great conference room scene with the three of them kind of talking about what they've just said, what they've just saw. And they made an interesting comparison, too, that if like at the end of the eugenics wars, Earth was destroyed, and all that was left of it was the sleeper ships, Khan and his crew and those people. Would you want them destroyed as like the last remnants of humanity? So can you let the androids be destroyed? Can you stand by and let them be destroyed? And then Dr. Crusher and Riker leave him with some thinking to do, basically. Now the book ends with some really awesome stuff here too. Data, after the hearing, invites Solaru for a drink and then a walk on the holodeck. And he has programmed this program to be basically the Spartacus program, which is where the name of the book comes from, I'm sure. Here, I was waiting for the whole time something to come up with Spartacus, and right here it is in chapter 11, right before the end. He's walking them through, ancient Roman times, and they run into Spartacus and his mob, or his crew of escaped slaves. And then it comes down to where Data and Solaru and Spartacus are kind of walking down the road talking, and through talking to Spartacus about his situation, Solaru's kind of able to work his way through what's going on in his mind. So once the hearing is decided, Picard decides to grant them provisional membership. So it may still be casted down, but for right now, they are under the protection of the Enterprise. And then at this point, Alkirk is like, all right, well, we're going to go back to the ship and we're just going to attack them, and that's the end of it. But Solaru has heard enough, and he finally stands up to her and relieves her of her duty. He makes her stand down, signals his crew that there's not going to be a battle, and they're all very excited about that. All of his crew is basically like at their wits' end, and this whole mission has just been one awful disaster after another, and they were ready to mutiny anyway. So they're happy to hear that, and he's basically decided that enough is enough. The way his planet has been run is crazy. He's going to go back and he's going to do like a military dictatorship or something, just try to take things over, which probably going to be a lot better for them than what is going on with them right now. So that's how the book ends, with basically not a single shot fired, which is great. What a great book. They had one little scene where Worf was like, Captain, our phasers are getting overloaded, and we need to just release some of the capacitance on them. And so they're like, okay, we have to blow up this asteroid over here just to release our phasers. And they say, this is just a low power test. And Worf cranks up to full power, and they blow up this asteroid. That's literally like the only shot in the thing. But it was just a way to kind of show both of these people how outclassed they are by the Enterprise and the Enterprise's crew, which is awesome. So, man, what a great book this was. I came into this expecting something. I mean, you look at the title and you're like, or the cover, and you're thinking, okay, Riker and Data are going to get captured on an away mission and be forced to fight in some kind of gladiatorial pit. But that was not at all the effect. This book was basically a book about people talking through their problems. And then you get this great little story about what would happen to a society that gave itself up to just androids to do everything for them, and how that eventually would, of course, turn awful, which it did. So I was very pleasantly surprised by this book. I came in expecting something else, just by looking at the cover and the title, and was given just this wonderful Star Trek book with all of these fantastic scenes of people just sitting down and talking out their problems, which is awesome. Also, a very nice quote in here, which kind of hit with me very good, because it's something I found that I do. It was Data was talking to the holodeck computer, and after the computer said something, Data said, "Thank you." And then Saul was like, "You even thank your computer?" And he was like, "I have learned that politeness and manners, when practiced universally, alter the behavior of both the practitioner and the recipient in a favorable manner." Man, that is so true. I have one of those personal devices that I can talk to, and I find myself thanking it constantly. They can't hear me, but I feel that it's good to do so anyway. So I liked that. I like this book a lot, and I'm excited to see what's next. But I don't know what's next. So if anyone has a suggestion, what I do know is that I'm not going to jump right into 21 after 20. I'm going to do something different. I had a thought to read Mission to Horatius, and I think I might do that, but that will be so short. So if anyone has a suggestion about where I should go from here, let me know. Otherwise, I'm sure I'm going to find something good somewhere. There's so much to read over there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time. Bye.